PFC Longfellow was the point man. Sergeant Dave Hansen was the slack man. I was behind him carrying my radio, followed by other 1st Squad members, then the 2nd Squad, and lastly 3rd Squad. Sergeant First Class Charlie Wilson, platoon sergeant, traveled with the 3rd Squad. Our move went superbly, and when we were but 10 meters from where I wanted to penetrate the jungle, PFC Longfellow stopped and pointed at the nearby rice dike. At first I thought he spotted a booby trap, and I thought, good job, Longfellow. That's how to find these things. But he kept pointing toward it. Hansen pointed vigorously to the jungle to the right, indicating to continue along the march. Longfellow shook his head no. I looked at him, pointed to the jungle, and moved my lips to say, go over there. Longfellow continued to move toward the dike. Hansen dumped his ruck, ran after Longfellow, caught him, and grabbed him as both moved up along the dike. Then, as many of you have, I saw the familiar orange and yellow flash, saw my 2 troopers get engulfed with dark gray and black smoke, felt the shock and concussion of the blast, which knocked me on my backside, and heard the shrapnel go whizzing by, spraying the rest of my platoon. I got up, went to my 2 troopers. Both were screaming and bleeding. Hansen's abdomen and groin were open, and he was covered with shrapnel. Longfellow's left leg was severed about 6 inches above his knee, and he was covered in shrapnel. I prayed real hard. Then I applied a tourniquet to Longfellow, and within minutes, Sergeant First Class Wilson, the entire 3rd Squad, and platoon medic were on site. Wilson told me he had already called the medevac. Our medic applied tourniquets, administered morphine, and started IVs on both. We put Hansen on our stretcher and made a field stretcher for Longfellow. Hansen and Longfellow were in the military evac hospital in Saigon within 15 minutes after the explosion. We entered the complex, soon followed by engineers and some dismounts from the ground troops, and began securing the area, patrolling and digging into bunkers. We found lots of weapons and supplies, no enemy. I got word on New Year's Eve 1972 that Hansen had been evacuated to Landstuhl in Germany, and all looked well for him. Longfellow, who had lost his left leg, was recovering nicely in the hospital in Saigon. My platoon was glad to hear of the news, and I could not thank Charlie Wilson or Doc Carnuta, our platoon medic, enough for what they did to save our guys. Well, it was either the 18th of January or maybe it was the 19th. I got a call from the Air Cav Troop Commander to establish a pickup zone for me to join him on his command and control helicopter. We did this, and I got on the bird, I put on the helmet, and the commander told me that Longfellow was not doing well, and he wanted to see me. By this time, practically the entire chain of command had visited Longfellow. I got to the evac hospital and was met at the door by 2 female U.S. Army nurses, 1 major, 1 captain, who told me Longfellow was physically doing okay, but he was and healthy, but he was severely depressed, and not because of losing his leg. They escorted me in, and it was good to see Longfellow all cleaned up and receiving great care. He was happy to see me, and I told him of all the great stuff we were doing in the bush. But the only thing he could talk about was how he had screwed up and disobeyed my order, and he begged my forgiveness, which of course I told him he was forgiven, all was well, and soon some platoon members, because we had come out of the field, would be in to see him. He asked me to not allow that, as he was embarrassed and ashamed of himself and could not face his buddies. Well, I told him we would work something out. After an hour, I had to leave, and Longfellow was smiling when I left. Not long after, he died. We came in from the bush, held a memorial ceremony, and spent a few days in the rear. The official cause of death was failure of the will to live, which I then thought was rather unbelievable. As years have gone by, I can see it's very believable. Here, a young man thinks enough about his duty, his unit, his fellow troopers, and himself, so as to want to be with God, where he won't be embarrassed and will have his leg back, than to face his buddies. Though we know Army buddies don't hold grudges and are most forgiving. I shall think of Ron all day and continue to pray for his family, his mom, dad, and 8 brothers and sisters. Well, that's my memorial today. What's yours? You have one? If so, share it as I did mine. If you have already shared your story, do it again. Then, later today at the picnic, when Uncle Ed comes up to you and asks why you always bring it up and how you cannot bring those back from the dead, you tell him you were at the Lexington Cemetery today and the speaker, Ranger Bob, emphasized the importance of remembering our fallen comrades and loved ones. It is our duty and moral obligation, no matter how painful. Ladies and gentlemen, Memorial Day ain't just about picnics. Now let me digress for a minute. This is not on my written comments, but I just thought of this as I was reading this. Don't walk out of here and say, you know, Ranger Bob really doesn't like to have picnics on Memorial Day. No, that's not right. Go have a picnic. Weather's going to be okay. Go to the lake, go fishing, spend time with the family. Go play those 36 holes of golf and then call your boss tomorrow and say you can't come into work because your back hurts, just like you did last year. Okay? What I'm saying is, let's not lose the focus of what today's all about. Let me share with you last some trivia. It seems that in the Eastern European armies, it doesn't say which Eastern European armies, of the 13th and 14th centuries, the people and soldiers believed that those who died in combat went directly to heaven. And their battle cry was the word hurrah, H-U-R-R-A-H, hurrah. A derivative of that is hooray. The Army has its own word of hooah, and the Marines have always said hurrah, if I'm saying that right. Hurrah, literally translated, means onward to paradise. Onward to paradise. Now, right after my talk, I am certain that that chaplain back there is going to come up to me and say that there is no biblical precedence for this notion. Well, you know, he's a student of the Bible, whereas I can get away with this because I'm just some crusty old worn-out cavalry colonel who does not do well at memorizing Scripture. But perhaps my ancestors got this notion from a passage in the Good Book, and I don't know exactly where it is, but I'm sure you guys do, that Jesus says, quote, "No greater love hath a man than he who dies for his friends." And isn't that what Jesus did? And isn't that what Longfellow did? And isn't that what Officer Brian Durman of the Lexington Police Department did? And all the many military personnel and policemen and firemen and women, isn't that what they did? So as you walk through this hallowed ground and look at other places like places of rest for our heroes, maybe now, besides having a moment of prayer, you whisper, "Hoorah." Ladies and gentlemen of the great city of Lexington, in the mighty Commonwealth of Kentucky, thanks for your attendance this morning and your patience and attention to my speech. Again, it has been mine and my lovely Lady Brenda's distinct privilege to be here with you. May God bless you all. May God bless the United States of America. Thanks again. Hoorah.